And now, Virgin Most Powerful Radio is pleased to present Hands-On Apologetics with renowned Catholic author and apologist, Gary Michuta.
And welcome everyone to Hands-On Apologetics. You have entered into Virgin Most Powerful's Apologetics Dojo. It's great to be with you today. Closing out the final week of the year, and also, by the way, the final week of Hands-On Apologetics on Virgin Most Powerful Radio. So we're going to have the last two shows are going to be action-packed in the sense that we're going to really dive into great apologetic resources. Today, we're going to focus on great apologetic books. You know, over the years on Hands-On Apologetics, had a lot of guests that I've handpicked from out there in the field of apologetics. They've all written, or I shouldn't say all, but nearly all of them are authors and have written some fantastic resources that we've also highlighted over the years. So I thought, since it's near end, and usually radio shows around this time will have the best of interviews or best books or something like that, why not go through some of these great resources? Because being an apologist, you got to have tools of the trade. And part of the tools in explaining and defending the faith is having great resources on hand. And there are a lot of great resources. In fact, I have a big pile of books for those watching live stream over here. And also at my feet as well, of some fantastic resources that I've enjoyed, and I feel it's very good, strong, solid material. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And to make it even more fun, we're going to have William Albrecht with us, and he's going to share his book recommends as well. And we're just going to bat around the best titles out there that you can pick up and get your reading list set. You know, we had John DeRosa on the show yesterday talking about New Year's resolutions for apologists, and one of the resolutions is great reading, going through books and resources, training our minds as well as spiritually, to defend and explain the faith. So that's what we're going to do with William Albrecht, starting on the other side of the break. On this side of the break, folks, we're going to do our Finding the Fallacy segment, where we look at informal fallacy every show. Today's Finding the Fallacy is the appeal to flattery. Now, you folks are smart enough to know exactly what I mean by the appeal to flattery. And also, we're going to meet an early church father. Today's early church father is, I'm not sure how well known he is. He would be totally unknown to me had he not been in Jurgen's Faith Early Fathers, and we've talked about him in various segments. It is Saint Cesar of Arles. Saint Cesar of Arles. So we'll learn a bit about him. We'll learn a little bit about the appeal to flattery. But before we do that, folks, I want to welcome all of you to the show. So welcome aboard, all of you listening on radio around the country. Also, all you live stream peeps, how you doing? And also all of you listening and watching via the internet and through podcast. It's great to have all of you with us. And like I said, the second from the last show here for Hands-On Apologetics. It's great to have you on board. By the way, even though we're not going to be on the air after the first of the year, our programs are still archived on virginmostpowerfulradio.org. So if there's an episode of the past that you want to access to and share with friends, or, maybe sometime in the future you run across a particular topic and you remember hearing that topic discussed on this show, all you have to do is just go to virginmostpowerfulradio.org, click on Hands-On Apologetics, and boom, you'll have the whole archive up there, and you can access it, download it, share it with friends, and use these, all the interviews that we've done over the years to prepare yourself to explain and defend the faith. So please avail yourself of that resource. It's very powerful, and I think it would be a great tool to be used for defending the faith. Also, I want to give the official dojo mailbox, which is questions at handsonapologetics.com. Also, by the way, if you want to check out my website, it's handsonapologetics.com, and also GaryMichuta.com. Gary Michuta, by the way, is the website that has my books and CDs or MP3s. Hands-on Apologetics is just basic stuff that I do. And, of course, speaking of William Albrecht, we also have a channel on YouTube called Apocrypha Apocalypse, in which we dive into all things Deuterocanon. Please check that out, subscribe, like, and stuff like that. Also, I'm there on Patreon. If you'd like to support my ministry, that's also greatly appreciated. All right, so let's go to our Finding the Fallacy for today, which is the appeal to flattery. Appeal to flattery is a fallacy in which a person uses flattery, excessive compliments, in an attempt to appeal to the audience's vanity to win support for their side. And this is also has a lot of AKAs, like most fallacies, like apple polishing, wheel greasing, appeal to pride, appeal to vanity, so on and so forth. This is used a lot, and this is one of those things where as soon as I hear it, my radar goes on, because I know that somebody is trying to massage the evidence or manipulate people. It can be as subtle as simply qualifying things such as, well, you Bible-believing Christians know that such and such is true. Or you could even say, some of you solid Catholics know that such and such is true. What this is attempting to flatter the audience in such a way that you're almost manipulated to accept whatever the position is that follows, because after all, you want to be the intelligent person. You want to be the solid Catholic or solid Bible Christian or whatever, right? Because it could be used any way, where flattery can, in a sense, kind of provoke you to accept something without actually listening to the evidence or the arguments for it. So as soon as I hear things like that, immediately I put my critical thinking skills on maximum and really try to focus mainly on what's being said and the grounding for what's being said, not for whether or not the speaker thinks that if I accept their position that somehow I'm, part of the in crowd or, somehow more appealing or something like that. And this is used all over the place, not just in apologetics, of course. It's used a lot in advertising. It's used a lot in politics. It's used everywhere, quite frankly. So, there's those warning flags that I think whenever you come across something like that, it's always good to, pump the brakes and start focusing only on, okay, what's the evidence for this? Because apparently the speaker feels the need to win you to the side other than by looking at facts. Okay, so that's our Finding the Fallacy for today, the appeal to flattery. All right, let's meet our early church father for today, who is Saint Cesar of Arles, or Saint Caesar. Cesar of Arles was a Burgundian. He was undoubtedly the most influential Gallic bishop of his time. A monk in the monastery of Lorenz, he held an important archiepiscopal see in Arles from 502 until his death 40 years later. Cesar was probably the greatest moral preacher of the Western Church between St. Augustine and Bernhard of Regensburg, and was likewise renowned for his pastoral abilities. Not only did he personally escape the taint of semi-Pelagianism, which had affected so many of his countrymen and fellow monks, but he wrote vigorously against that heresy and presided over one of my favorite councils of the church, by the way, the Second Council of Orange in 529 AD, which council condemned semi-Pelagianism while upholding a modified form of Augustinism. The proceedings of Orange very shortly received specific papal approval, which means that even though it's a local council, it is an authoritative council of the church. In fact, you'll see the Council of Trent of all councils, referring to Second Orange. He's especially renowned for his works of charity. St. Cesar himself lived in perfect poverty while distributing to the poor and using for the ransom of captives all such wealth that came to him. Valuable Life of St. Cesar is in 2 volumes, which is written by 5 of his friends and intimate acquaintances between the years 542 and 549. And just a little factoid that I learned from Marcus Grodi in regards to St. Cesar is that the location of his ministry in Arles made him incredibly influential in the West because his diocese was situated in such a way that when bishops needed to travel from Western Europe to Rome, they would naturally travel through his diocese. And so many of these church leaders ended up at church and hearing St. Cesar's sermons. And hence, that's why his fame is of his sermons. And his sermons were very good. In fact, he packaged his sermons and wrote them down and gave them to these bishops to be used in their churches when they returned home. And hence, his sermons became incredibly influential. And like Jurgen's Faith Early Father says, his sermons were also very well grounded in terms of moral preaching. So he was a very, very influential figure. And it's always fun, when it comes to the early church fathers, to see how divine providence had placed St. Cesar in the right place at the right time for the body of Christ, the church. And that's our early church father for today, St. Cesar of Arles. Coming up next, William Albrecht. We're going to be talking about awesome apologetic books. Stay tuned.
Thank you for listening to Virgin Most Powerful Radio, home of the Bishop Strickland Hour, sharing the gospel with clarity and charity.
Did you know my mom's gonna have a baby?
She is?
Will it be a boy?
Or will it be a girl?
We don't know yet, but we heard the heartbeat and my dad said this is gonna be someone very special.
You mean like being a president? Or maybe a doctor?
Well, probably maybe like a singer or dancer, I think.
Hello, my name is Mary Ann Koharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. We know that every baby is a miracle and has the potential to do great things. If you know someone who is pregnant or in need of alternatives or assistance, or would like to support the work of Pro-Life Across America, please call 1-800-366-7773 or visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org. Pro-Life Across America is non-political and totally educational.
Pro-Life Across America, the Billboard people.
Terry Barber here at Virgin Most Powerful Radio. I'm encouraging people to support realestateforlife.org. They'll have a pro-life agent for you. California's laws for the family are really bad. If you have a young family and you can afford to get out of California, get out and make a new life somewhere where you're not going to have the repressive laws. For example, if your son wants to change his sex and you don't want that to happen, the school can take your child away from you. Yes, that's how bad it is, folks. That's why I'm encouraging you to go to realestateforlife.org. God bless you for supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Now, back to Hands-on Apologetics with Gary Michuta. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody. Hands-on Apologetics. Well, you know what? Over the years of doing Hands-on Apologetics, I've had many, many great guests. Like I said, many of them are authors, and we've talked about many books for apologetics. I thought it'd be great, since we're wrapping up Hands-On Apologetics, to kind of bring to the forefront some of these books, and not only books that I love, but also the favorite books of a good friend of ours on the show, William Albrecht. As you know, William Albrecht runs patristicpillars.com. He has participated in over 50 live and moderated debates, and he is a co-partner with me on patristicpillars.com, and he also has a couple of books that I'm going to recommend and embarrass him on this episode. So, William, welcome to Hands-On Apologetics.
Gary, thrilled to be here with you, and man, I am excited to talk about my favorite books of the year, maybe even beyond the year, books that in general, and for apologetics, because you know very well that when you find a good apologetics book, a gem, you utilize it a lot. So my favorite books of the year and pretty much beyond, I'm going to embarrass you as well. So don't worry, we're going to both embarrass each other. But I'm thrilled to be here and really to get the opportunity to relax and lay back and really tell the audience, okay, these are the books that we're reading and we highly recommend for you all. Just really excited because, hey, as you know very well, Gary, one thing that we have very much in common is we're both nerds and we both love to read a lot. Okay.
Yeah, very good. Well, why don't we get the embarrassment out of the way, and maybe we could take turns. Okay. So let me go first. I will recommend basically every book you and Father Capps wrote. Father Capps, like, for example, The Secret History of Transubstantiation, Pulling Back the Veil on the Eucharist. You have, of course, your book on Mary. You have a book on the canon, book on Peter and the papacy. Am I missing anything? Did you guys write something that...
We've got the Mary book, the Eucharist book, papacy, right, and the canon book. So yeah, you nailed them all. You got them all there. Yeah, thank you for that recommendation. We really put in a lot of work into those books. They were labors of love, and we truly, truly poured our love for the faith into them. Now, when it comes to me, Gary, you've got some incredible books. One book that I, and you know, the audience are going to know this because I'm not just saying it to tickle your ears. I bring it up often when I'm either on with you or someone else. Now, there are a lot of great books that you've written. I recommend them all, of course, but in particular, one that I think you did an amazing job on, Hostile Witnesses. Off the top of my head, I utilize that book maybe right up there as much as many other books. And let me tell the audience why real briefly, Gary, if you don't mind. One particular thing you know very well, Gary, is I debate a lot with atheists, with non-believers, with Muslims. And when you're debating these kinds of people and you're trying to prove the truth, the veracity of the Catholic faith, at the end of the day, they're going to say, well, look, we don't agree with your interpretation of the Bible. And, you know, we don't really agree with the twisting interpretation of the church fathers you're using. But then when you bring up what you've brilliantly dubbed a hostile witness that shows that, let me give an example. I'll pick out one that you have in your great book, Hostile Witnesses, the figure of Lucian of Samosata, for example. If we can bring out an early hostile witness, they are no friends to the Catholic faith. Indeed, very often they're attacking the Catholic faith as being ridiculous and just an all-out attack on Christianity. And if they are writing, attacking the Christian faith, and showing you what the earliest followers of the Christ believed in, and if those early beliefs line up particularly with the Catholic faith, well, that hostile witness serves as a great example and a great apologetic when dialoguing with non-believers, even with our Protestant friends, but especially with Muslims, with non-believers, with atheists. So hostile witnesses are incredibly important. And Gary, I cannot recommend that book of yours enough. Another great book you recently came out with that I love and I recommend heavily is The Gospel Truth. Now, these books are books that I think belong not on that virtual bookshelf back there, on the real bookshelf, on everybody's real bookshelf. And Gary, maybe you could just touch upon that just a bit for the audience to know, why did you think hostile witnesses were important? You had to have had something where you thought, you know what, I got to put that in book form. What was your thought when you put that book together?
Well, it's just the accumulation of counter evidence that I kept running over the years. It kind of accumulated. And, I always wanted to have those in my back pocket for a debate.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of, it's a curveball, right? It approaches the data in an unusual angle. And I just thought, you know what, if I compile it all and extend it all the way to World War II, I mean, it's amazing how many enemies of the church actually affirm things that are denied today. So, so that's one of the books I go back to too. I put it all there just so I could reference it. William, okay, since you threw one at me, it's so hard for me to pick what my favorite book of yours. For the listening audience, William and Father Kappas' books are not beginner's level. At least I think, at least certainly the Transubstantiation, maybe the Mary book, but it's good for intermediate apologist and above.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You guys have a knack of uncovering evidence that has been either neglected or unknown, and you do that consistently through your books. So what's the secret?
I think really, Gary, the secret is when we forged our friendship, and by the way, we talk very often. We're very, very good friends working on new material all the time. When we forged our friendship, we had one individual in Father Kappas who, as you know very well, is one of the top scholars in the world, a legit scholar and one of the top Greek scholars in the world, who will come to the Bible and look at the Bible from a particular aspect of the world, of the ancient world. He'll look at it, well, how did the early Jews and how did the early Christians interpret these texts? He'll look at it like that. And then you've got myself, who I am a big-time nerd when it comes to the early church fathers. So when we get together and we toss ideas at each other, and we always make sure that our ideas have a very strong basis in the early church. And a lot of the times we stumble upon things that, seem to have been forgotten throughout history. Now, very clearly, nobody's reinventing the wheel because the Catholic faith is ancient. It is biblical. It is ancient. But a lot of these interpretations, such as one thing that I think really blew us away when we were working on the Mary book, is we always realized how the early fathers, they talked and they spoke about Mary having taken a vow of virginity. But we kind of really didn't realize where that particular vow came from. We were able to line up the Greek of Luke chapter 1 with that of Judges 11. And then we said, I remember, I'm going to give Father the credit for that particular find. Him and Dr. Brock both confirmed that. A legit find. Dr. Brock, top Syriac and Greek scholar. But then I said, well, you know what? We're going to put that in book form. We have to find early church fathers. That was the hard part. That took quite a while because some of these fathers we found were not in the TLG, which is the Thesaurus Lingua Grece, which the largest Greek database in the world. I had to go around searching in other databases, Syriac databases, with the help of our friend Dr. Brock, and we found multiple fathers. So things like that are real gems that will allow us to say, okay, well, we know the early fathers believe Mary had taken a vow, but how about this other wrinkle to where they believe the vow is truly laid out in sacred scripture? So that was really a lot of fun to work with, Gary. And we just have a blast working on stuff all the time. Yeah,
that's awesome. So okay, we got the embarrassing stuff out of the way.
Yep, we did.
Let's go to recommends. Do you want to go first or me?
You mind if I go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let me recommend a really good book. What a great, great book. And it was translated by my dear friend, Dr. Matthew Maynard. And but of course, the author of the book is Father Garrigou Lagrange. And rather, actually, there are two massive volumes. They are on divine revelation. Now, these are massive. These are thick. These are not, and I'll be very honest, this is not easy reading. This is advanced level. But these are two books that I very frequently find myself going back to. Now, of course, I've read them both. There are two massive volumes. I'm showing the audience volume 1. And this on divine revelation is the teaching on the Catholic faith. It will break down, what do we believe? Why do we believe it? Dogmatically, why do we believe it? Biblically, where is it? Where is it in the early church fathers? Where is it in early church councils? In terms of debates that happened in the early era, early heresies? It's a massive book, but it's a book that I recommend everybody get a hold of. I very frequently find myself going back to it. And it's put out by Emmaus, as you know very well, Gary. Emmaus puts out top-notch scholarly material. You know that. They're great, and I really, really highly recommend it. I think the audience will really get a lot out of it.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Yeah, okay. Mine, again, I'm going to do a set of books. Frequent guest on the show, Carlo Broussard. And he's written some really great apologetic works. Meeting the Protestant Challenge, How to Answer Common Comebacks to Catholic Arguments. Where else? He has a fantastic book on purgatory. And boy, I'm missing one. Meeting the Protestant Response in the Protestant Challenge. Yes.
Yeah, I would recommend anything from Carlo. You're great with that. He's great.
Yeah, I love the challenge books because he breaks the arguments down. He gives one or two really solid points, and he gives counter challenges. And for especially someone who's beginning apologetics, or maybe they've done it a few years and they kind of want to, fill out those areas of defending the faith that maybe they're not used to defending, or they don't know a lot. Carlo's books are so clear, simple, and he's like us. He works in the field, so he knows what works and what doesn't work, right?
Yeah, I think that the great thing about Carlo, near and dear friend of mine, is that just like us, he's got the boots on the ground. He's going from parish to parish. He's dialoguing with people. We've done a number of shows together where Carlo is just so interactive. And Carlo very clearly will go back to the show we do. He'll look in the comments to see, okay, what is on everybody's mind? What is concerning everybody? What are the theological aspects that we need to deal with? What are the real arguments we have to deal with? And he writes those down and meticulously does the research to respond. I recommend people if there are any books of Carlo that you can find, get a hold of them. You need to have them in your library. And what I like about Carlo is that his books are so easy to read, and I'd recommend them to and any level. If you just begin apologetics, you're going to get a lot out of them. If you've got friends that are really, really they want to get their feet wet in the field, and then maybe they want to do apologetics in their parish, start an apologetic study group or what have you. I cannot recommend his books enough. They are solid.
Yeah, great stuff. And wow, right on time too. I hear the music coming up.
Yep.
I'm joined by William Albrecht. We're going through our book recommends for the past year. More to come right after this. You're listening to Hands On Apologetics.
Here's a great way to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio. You have an old car you want to get rid of, motorcycle, RV, or boat? Simply call 855-500-7433, and when they sell that vehicle, a portion of that money comes right back to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio. It's an easy way to do it. I want to thank you for it. Call 855-500-7433. God love you and your family.
This is a minute meditation from Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Everyone who believes in him has eternal life with him. John chapter 3 verse 15. In the words of St. Thomas Aquinas, faith is in no way a burden or a yoke imposed on mankind. Far from it. Faith is an immense benefit because it commences life in us even on this earth. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for giving us the gift of faith. Help us to remain firm in our faith throughout our lives, and to strive to increase it, day by day.
This has been a minute meditation from Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
This is Jesse Romero. You're listening to Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Michuta on Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
And welcome back, everybody. Hands-On Apologetics. We're chatting with William Albrecht, and we're going back and forth, giving our book recommendations. And William, it's your turn. You want to throw a title out there?
Yeah, here's a book that I cannot recommend enough. Now, this is, I guess, kind of like a niche area in apologetics, because very often when we talk about the perpetual virginity of Mary, we double down and we deal with, well, the very common passages our evangelical friends throw forth in terms of Mary, where they believe Mary didn't remain a virgin, and we clearly provide the biblical response, the patristic response. But what about the virginity in part 2? People at times hear that. They're like, what is that? What is the virginity in part 2? Well, it means that Holy Mary remained physically intact as well after giving birth to our Lord and Savior. This was taught in multiple ecumenical councils, and the fathers were virtually unanimous on this. They were unanimous on this. But there really isn't a whole lot out there in English on the topic. Now, there are a number of books in Spanish and in German. In English, there's only one that I can find. And it really is the standard, and it's kind of used up. I've read it so much. The Virgin Shall Give Birth. Not only is this a mega book written by Father John Lawrence, by the way, a very holy, wonderful priest, what he will do is mind-blowing. He'll go through the Bible, then he will go through all of the early fathers, leading all the way up to Blessed Duns Scotus throughout history. Very easy to read, a very in-depth study, but an area in apologetics that I think is important because it really is a traditional Catholic belief. I recommend it heavily. The Virgin Shall Give Birth. And, any book that is good on Mariology, as you know very well, Gary, one of my areas that I love to deal with, and it's published by the Academy of the Immaculate, which, by the way, they've published a number of works from Father Coppus as well. So they are top-notch when it comes to Mariology apologetics.
Wow, well, that's great. I wasn't familiar with that book, so
yeah,
I'm quickly looking up on the internet and putting it on my wish list.
Man, I wish it was available. I'm going to toss it out there for Father. I've told him many times, Father Lawrence and the Academy of the Immaculate. I love you guys. 2023, you got to put a digital edition out. We could hope that they do that soon.
Yeah. A lot of publishers don't, and it's really a shame because a lot of people do digital reading, and
I do both. We both do both, right, Gary? I do both. Yeah. You do both as well,
right? Yeah. So, I don't know, and there's a higher profit margin too for the publishers doing electronic printing. So, it's a shame they don't. But anyway, good. We'll put that on the list.
Yeah. What about yours?
My turn. There's actually a couple books, William. I'm going to do two just for the sake of time.
Yeah.
One's kind of up your alley because you do a lot of debating with atheism. Yep. John DeRosa's One Less God Than You. He was on the show yesterday.
Wow.
And where he goes through and he how to answer the slogans, cliches, and fallacies that atheists use to challenge your faith. And actually, he had this as an ebook on it, a smaller version as an ebook on his site. classicaltheism.com, and I read it and I thought, man, this is something we actually needed years ago. But
wow.
you know how atheists always have these like little zingers they'll throw out that kind of throw you for a loop,
No doubt.
He takes all the most common zingers, he analyzes them, takes them apart, and gives a great instruction on how to respond to it. The other one is also Dr. Douglas Beaumont. I think you're familiar with Dr. Beaumont.
Yeah, we did a show with him together.
Yeah, he had a book with One Accord put out by Catholic Answers Press. which is kind of interesting. It's one of those books that takes a different apologetic angle, kind of like Hostile Witnesses,
right?
Where what he's looking at is for controverted issues like prayers to the saints, he will take an issue that Catholics and Protestants both hold on to.
Yeah.
And the problem is the Protestant just doesn't take it to its next step, right?
Yeah, right.
So with one accord, he finds common ground, and then he shows you how to use that as leverage to complete the circle, so to speak.
Wow. That's incredible. In fact, in the break right now, I'm going to put those on my wish list. That's awesome. And here's another thing, Gary, that I think, and we brought it up earlier, that not only are these great books that I want to have in my library, but we recommend people tuning in. If you want to, it's never too late. Still in the Christmas season. If you want to gift any of the books we've talked about to friends or family, do that. I can tell you one thing that I love being gifted are theology books. Anybody, if you've got that theology nerd in the family, I'll tell you one thing, they're going to love that. They really, really will. Great recommendations there, Gary. Great job.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have another one or?
Oh, yeah, definitely do. Now, this one, do we have a little bit of time before the break?
Yeah, let's go. We got a few minutes.
Okay. So this is people are going to get so mad, maybe want to throw tomatoes at me. This is a very, very hard to find book that is called The First Gospel by Father Dominic Unger. Now, this is such a great, great book. Now, and you can tell this has been, taken apart because I made digital copy for myself. This is a incredibly hard to find book. I don't want to go into too great a detail, but I know the owners of Franciscan Institute Publications, and sad to say this book is out of print forever because all of the copies that they had were just recently lost in a terrible accident. And this they will no longer be reprinting this. So you can find this in a used bookstore. It's almost impossible to find now, but you can find it in a used bookstore. Get a hold of it. What Father Dominic Unger has done here is he has gathered every early church father that provides commentary in Genesis 3:15 to show that prophecy is about our Holy Mother Mary, our Immaculate Mother Mary, and about our Lord and Savior Christ. And he's so meticulous, as you know, Gary. He goes throughout the Bible, looks at the Hebrew, looks at the Greek. Then he'll go from the Apostolic Fathers all the way to the late medieval era. It is an incredible book. I utilize this book every year, all throughout the year. Just a very, very good book that I highly, highly recommend. And as the audience can tell, I utilize it a whole lot there. And I'm sure you've read it a lot as well, haven't you, Gary?
Yeah, your copy looks about the same as mine. It's an awesome book. Yeah, I got yelled at by a person who I mentioned it on Catholic Answers, and they ran out trying to find it, and they couldn't. So he was a little frustrated. But, if you can get a hold of a copy, definitely do it. It's an awesome book. Great recommend, William.
Yeah, and it's tough to get a hold of it. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a great manual for those who are just getting into apologetics. It's put out by John Martinoni. Of course, he's a favorite on this show. Blue Collar Apologetics, How to Explain and Defend the Catholic Teaching Using Common Sense, Simple Logic, and the Bible. I love John's practical approach. Yep. Very simple, very straightforward, not convoluted at all. I think it's a great introductory book for anyone interested in apologetics.
Without a doubt, and I highly recommend that for people that are just getting into apologetics. You want to get your feet wet. You want to find out what are very common arguments that you hear. Look, the very title of what John does is great. Is Blue Collar Apologetics. For the everyday working individual, the everyday male or female. He's got really, really good introductory stuff there, and really stuff that when you're dialoguing with people, a lot of the people that you're running into. They're not full-blown apologists. A lot of them want introductory stuff. So I highly recommend John's material as well. That's a solid recommend there, Gary.
Yeah, it's fun to read, just like listening to him.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so tag, you're it, William. What's your book recommend?
Now, this is a great book that both you and myself, we've read it so many times. This one, sometimes it's hard to find. Sometimes you can find it relatively easy online. but it is indispensable. It is an incredibly important book. If you're going to be talking about the Reformation, or you're going to be talking about the canon of Scripture, it's a great book. It is called The Enchiridion from John Eck. Enchiridion of Commonplaces against Luther. And this is John Eck's dialogue, his back and forth against Martin Luther. Why do I highly recommend it? Well, number one, you can see what a lot of the issues were to begin with that separated us, what Luther's issues were. And what I love as well is it has a great, right in the back there, index of Scripture. And you can see, as you know very well, Gary, the flip-flopping of Luther. You can see the utilization of the Deuterocanon all over the place without any objections of Luther very early on. It shows how Luther's theology would later evolve. Second Maccabees is utilized all over the place. Sirach, the Book of Wisdom, Judith, Tobit, all over the place here. We've got deuterocanonical books being utilized, and Luther is not giving a peep of objection the majority of the time there as they're utilized. So I think it's a very important book. It will educate individuals as to what were the things that divided us when the Reformation came about. So it's a very relevant book even today when dialoguing with our Protestant friends and telling them, hey, okay, this is what separated us, but there is a scriptural response, and there has been one from the very beginning.
Yeah. Now, what's the title again?
It is called The Enchiridion of Commonplaces. It is a very good book. And sometimes you can find it on Amazon or on eBay. Now, if somebody does look and they say, William, I couldn't find it, or William, it was too expensive, tap the button on Amazon to put it on your wish list. You'd be surprised how often this title does come up. Indeed, I've got a few copies of this that I do own, and each time I have found it for a reasonable price. So if you are unable to find it, do not dismay, do not worry. I'd be willing to bet that eventually it will pop up. It is not like the first gospel by Father Dominic Unger, to where it's virtually impossible to find. Every now and then, this book will pop up. It'll pop up, and you'll be able to find it.
Okay, yeah, very good. I think I have just a little time to do my next recommend. Actually, I'm going to do Shane Kapler's works. Now, he has a book on James, Jewish roots, Catholic fruits. He also has one on Hebrews. We've had him on the show. What I like about these books is, it's introductory. It would be something that you could use in your church's Bible study or something like that. And it's a mixture of Bible study and apologetics. So are you familiar with those, William?
I am not, but I'm gonna put that on my wish list right now, though. I'd love to check that out.
All right. Yeah, very good. Well, we're going through book recommends before the end of the year with William Albrecht. Listen to Hands on Apologetics. We'll be right back with more books.
Genesis 1:27 says, God created man in his own image. Male and female he created them. According to Pope St. John the 23rd, it is not true that some human beings are by nature superior and others inferior. All human beings are equal in their natural dignity. May God help us to look upon everyone as a person created in his image and likeness, and treat everyone the same without favoritism or prejudice.
Help the Helpless, a Minnesota St. Paul nonprofit organization chaired by Father Altier and volunteers, is humbly asking you for your kind support to help the poor and the handicapped children in India and Ecuador. Through financial support from the Help of the Helpless benefactors, the children are provided with clothing, food, education, shelter, and the teachings of the Catholic Church. The mission is to help children thrive and become self-sufficient young adults leading productive lives. We also provide aid to poor families in Ecuador with food baskets, medicines, medical assistance, and help with funeral needs for the deceased. The work in India is done by Father Antonio's organization, St. Mary's. In Ecuador, the work is being done by the Servant Sisters of the home of Mother. You can call us at 877-762-8857. To learn more, please visit our website, www.helpthehelpless.org. God bless you. Terry Barber here at Virgin Most Powerful Radio. I'm encouraging people to support realestateforlife.org. They'll have a pro-life agent for you. California's laws for the family are really bad. If you have a young family and you can afford to get out of California, get out and make a new life somewhere where you're not going to have the repressive laws. For example, if your son wants to change his sex and you don't want that to happen, the school can take your child away from you. Yes, that's how bad it is, folks. That's why I'm encouraging you to go to realestateforlife.org. God bless you for supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Now, back to Hands-on Apologetics with Gary Michuta. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody. Hands-on Apologetics. We're going through book recommends, and actually, William, The Enchiridion and Commonplaces Against Luther and the Enemies of the Church are actually available on archive.org as a rental. So if you're a member, you can actually rent it for, by the hour and check it out for free. So if you can't find a copy, there you go.
That is so cool. That's great, Gary. What a great find. That's why it's great to gather with you and we put our heads together. That's great for people. If you want to check that out, keep renting it hourly until you finish it. It's a great read. Very good book.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so I think it's my turn, is it not, or is it your turn?
I think it's my turn. I think you
go ahead.
You mentioned it. So let me kind of shifting gears, but very, very relevant to dialoguing about apologetics. People very often ask me, William, what Old Testament or what New Testament are you using? One thing that I recommend that people own is a good, easy to read English Septuagint, and one that I highly use, I really recommend, is the Lexham English Septuagint. Oh, this is beautiful bound hardback, and it's a great one. And it's interestingly enough put out by Logos, and people know Logos do great work. And it's a new let me read it briefly. This is a new translation of the Septuagint, the Greek version of the Old Testament writings used during the New Testament times and in the early church. Typeset in comfortable single-column format, the LES provides a literal and transparent English edition of the Septuagint for modern readers. What I like about this, Gary, is it's very easy to read English. It's a Bible that you can carry with you. Now, of course, it's the Old Testament. The Old Testament, the Greek translation of the Old Testament, but this is in English. So very easy to read. Doesn't have any archaic kind of English. And it's a Septuagint that I think I'd recommend that anybody own. It's very easy to read and, very well priced as well.
Yeah, that's a very interesting book recommend. I think that's good. You get to read the Old Testament that the New Testament used.
There you go.
Or as their primary text.
Absolutely.
Very interesting stuff. Little subtle nuances and details that are different than you typically find in Bibles.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay. This other book recommend, if you know anybody who's entering into the church, maybe they're in OCIA, or maybe they're thinking about Catholicism, or maybe they became Catholic last Easter, and you're looking for a gift for them. Now, William, I know you know Keith Nestor.
Oh yeah.
I love his book. It's his first book he put out. It's The Convert's Guide to Roman Catholicism, Your First Year in the Church. This is the perfect gift because he's a convert. He recently went through kind of getting acclimatized to the church, and he has some really good advice for people that are going through that process. And of course, you came into the church as well, so you probably also are kind of familiar with the learning curve as far as the smells and bells and things like that.
No doubt. And Gary, as you know very well, because I'm sure you've heard it very often, is that for people that are new and fresh converts, it can be a bit of a daunting thing entering into Mass for the first time, and the second and the third and the fourth and so on. It was for me, even after I had converted and I was well aware of what to expect. And I heavily recommend. That's a very good book of his. And for the audience, check out his YouTube channel as well. Keith really does put out great material. It'll get you. It'll help you that when you get your feet wet, you'll know what to expect.
Right. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Okay, your turn. What's next on your list?
And Gary, I wish I had a physical copy of this. I have got a digital because the physical were. When I looked at them, they were hard to find. They were out of print. Right now, not out of print. They were sold out. They are not sold out right now. And I cannot recommend this enough. This is a new series that just came out, edited, translated by my dear friend, Dr. Goff, Dr. Isaac Goff. People can look it up online. Indeed, they can find them on Logos, or they can find them on Whiff and Stock Publishers. These are 3 volumes of books that are called Systematic Mariology, the collected essays of Father Peter Damian Fellner. Now, this is heavy reading. Volume 1 is called Marian Metaphysics. Right away, you get the idea that, okay, we're going to be dealing with metaphysics. And then Volume 2 is called Systematic Mariology. Volume 3, incredible. I cannot recommend it enough. Franciscan Mariology, Francis, Clare, and Bonaventure. This is heavy reading, but I highly recommend this for anybody. You want to learn about metaphysics, you want to learn about Christology. This 3-book series, it is a series that I have been reading a lot, really been digging in. But I do want to let the audience know, I do want to be fair to the audience, it is heavy reading. This is not introductory. This is not intermediate either. This is advanced. But I'll tell you one thing, if you like this kind of stuff and you say, well, look, maybe I'm used to reading, mid-level stuff, but I want to get my brain cracked. You're going to get your brain cracked with this. I heavily recommend it.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's good because especially those subjects, they're so deep and it's so easy to, if you don't know the nuances, you can kind of be thrown for a loop, especially someone who's really trained at undermining the faith in those areas. So, very good.
No doubt.
Any particular? You said it's 3 volumes, right?
3 volumes, and if people, if they want to get an idea of where this is going, they can get a sneak peek of this. I believe it's if you go to Whiff and Stock Publishers, you can preview the title. You can tap the button there. It'll let you preview Volume 1, which is titled Marian Metaphysics. So I really, really recommend it. I think people will get a lot out of it. And this is really high-level, high-end theology stuff.
All right. Well, good. Excellent. Okay, so along the same line of thought, here's a somewhat high level, but I don't think quite as high level as you recommend, William, but it's by our good friend Pat Flynn. He has a brand new book out called The Best Argument for God. As you know, Pat, this is the air that he breathes. He just is really, really well informed and all the different nuances and arguments and weaknesses. And he's come up with some really brilliant ways of addressing perennial problems for the existence of God.
Yep.
All of this is in his book. And the book, I think, would be accessible to someone who's maybe familiar with the arguments for the existence of God. I'm not sure if it'd be good for the beginner, but it certainly would be good for the advanced as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And I've got to be very clear. When it comes to apologetics on that kind of a level, dealing with natural theology, dealing with answers to atheist objections, it's very tough for me to say that there's really anybody better than Pat. Pat really is top level. The guy's a brain, and really, really, he's such a great apologist, and he's really a gift to the church. And anytime you ever see a book out there with the name Pat Flynn on it, and if you don't have it in your library, snag that book up and put that in your library. Pat is doing some great work, and he's just a really great all-around guy, and he knows what the arguments are. He knows what the objections are. Top-notch material all the way around there, Gary.
All right. Well, I think we have enough for you to give a book and for me to give a book.
Okay.
So yours next.
Let me give one really quick. And I use this book a lot. Indeed, this is one of the few books that Father Coppus and myself did not write together, but Father Coppus wrote this several years back, but I utilize it all the time. I'm going to tell the audience why they need to get a hold of it. It is called The Immaculate Conception: Why Thomas Aquinas Denied, while John Duns Scotus, Palamas, and Mark of Ephesus profess the absolute immaculate existence of Holy Mary. Now, why do I recommend that book, published by the Academy of the Immaculate? What Father Coppus does in that book is not done in any other book on Mary. He will gather the writings of figures like Gregory of Palamas, Mark of Ephesus, and many others, Joseph Brienius, figures that are giants, that are titans in the Eastern Orthodox faith. They're massively important. He'll show that from the very beginning, Eastern fathers and their patriarchs and great giant figures all believed in the immaculate creation, the immaculate conception of Mary. So this should not be an area that divides Catholics and our Orthodox brothers and sisters. And you're going to find a lot of brand new translations in English that exist nowhere else. That is a very, very good book. I highly recommend for people that love doing work in Mariology.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and again, that's probably advanced unless you're familiar with Orthodox and Mariology. Yeah, very good. My recommend is, I think I had him on the show once. It's Trent Horn's book, The Case for Catholicism, Answers to Classic and Contemporary Protestant Objections. It does a great job, the whole scope of Catholic apologetics, that's a huge area to cover in and of itself, and I think he picks the most important things to write on in that book.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Great recommend there, Gary. Fantastic. Let me toss one out with just 10 seconds really quick. Right there, back there on your shelf, people get a hold of Denzinger, edited by our dear friend, Dr. Fastigi. It's a red book back there. I didn't see it with a red with a gold label there. Great book as well. Sorry, Gary, I had to toss that one out as well.
See if I could point to it.
Yeah, you got it right. There you go.
Had to do it backwards. But it's a little expensive though, folks. Yeah, but it is. It's great. It's the updated version of Denzinger put out by Ignatius Press.
Absolutely.
And William, hey, as always, guess what? We're at the end of the show, but I have a couple of minutes, so tell us a little bit of what you're up to.
Just yesterday, had my final debate of the year. It went very well, thanks be to God. I debated very prominent atheist John Loftus on the idea of whether or not the virgin birth is reasonable or not. And I think it went very well, but really the goal for me is not to ever crush my atheist opponent. My goal at the end of the day is maybe one day John Loftus will become Catholic and be worshiping at Mass, and that really will be better than any kind of debate victory. And I think I was able to show him, even though he still doesn't believe, that Christians can show that the belief in the virgin birth, according to ancient Jewish prophecy and the New Testament, is a reasonable thing to believe. And for the audience, if you're wondering, well, William laid out for us, we've done multiple shows right here on Hands On Apologetics. Go look at the archives, and everything that I talked about there in the debate, I talked about it here first.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, William, hey, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Looking forward to it. Can't wait. Had a great time, Gary.
All right. William Albrecht, patristicpillars.com. Check it out, folks. Lots of great stuff, and you get to be abreast of all the stuff William Albrecht's up to, which is quite a bit. Coming up next, High Impact Catholic Talk coming at you with the Terry and Jesse Show. Thank you so much for listening, and God willing, we'll be back again tomorrow. Do this thing we call Hands On Apologetics. Bye-bye.